morning and welcome to all our wonderful guests this morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning for a webinar on Elevate. I'm sure this is an incredibly busy time for a lot of our joiners today, so thank you very much for making the time at this very busy time of year. So we very, very much appreciate you joining us this morning to talk about Elevate, which is the movement of assets from standard LISP to INN8. My guest this morning is Mike Summerton, Head of Proposition at INN8, and I will use the time this morning to do a quick recap of what we covered in our last session. This is the third session, and those previous sessions are available on our CPD portal, which we'll talk about as well during this session. We'll discuss how our Elevate journey is unfolding and what we've already done and why we think INN8 is so much better than our legacy system, Standard LISP. I'm Georgina Smith and I look after our group investment products within our distribution teams, and I'm expecting lots and lots of questions today, so please do type them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we possibly can during our session this morning. Also, for you to notice, this is, as I said, the third of several engagements, so please don't panic if you think of questions after today. You can ask your sales teams or simply send those questions into hello@innate.co.za or save it for the next webinar. No problem at all. So, Mike, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Good morning, George, and hello to everyone on the call today. It's fantastic to hear that everyone's joined, and I really appreciate the time that they've given us. So I know it's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, tell us about the journey we've been on to get here. Would you just give us a quick recap of where we've been?
Yeah. It feels a bit like deja vu, and so apologies to some people if you're hearing the story for a second or third time. But certainly from a group perspective, we've followed a specialization journey, and from a platform perspective, that means that these technology trends take a few decades to sort of evolve. And almost 10 years ago now, we decided to invest in a new platform for the future. And that is INN8. And the technology that sort of sits behind Standard LISP is starting to get a bit old and difficult to maintain. And so that's why we've chosen to move off of Standard LISP. Further to that, Standard Unit Trust Management continues. They are, of course, aiming to be the best asset manager in the country, and they remain so. But it's important that they focus on managing assets, and we at the platform can focus on delivering great service and making sure that advisors can deliver on great outcomes for clients.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. It's been quite a journey. Lots of fun along the way. I think you and I have been there more or less since the beginning. So we've certainly roller coasted every bump and high, and a couple of lows, which would be perfectly expected. But Mike, what do our advisors say about INN8? What's their kind of overall feedback, if you like, around INN8?
I think it's been positive and negative. I think there's been a lot in between. Certainly, from a digital proposition perspective, once advisors are comfortable with using the new way of doing things, because we place the power in their hands, right? And I think it's very empowering. It's a bit like Spider-Man. It comes with a lot of responsibility. But once you're comfortable managing your clients that way, I think that they really do like the efficient way of doing business on the platform. And then I guess over the next few years, we're just starting out. It feels like we're 7 or 8 years into the journey, but this platform will be the cornerstone for the Standard Bank Group's investment platform offering. And so we continue to invest in upgrades, new tools, widgets, etc., to make sure that this is the home for investments for the group going forward.
Yeah, I think what you said at the beginning there is really important. It's a digital straight-through platform. So once you, as the advisor, press go, that piece of business doesn't touch humans. It goes straight through, and the money gets invested. So whereas before, perhaps advisors had the luxury maybe of phoning a manual ops team and saying, stop the transaction. Now, of course, as you rightly say, the power is in your hands as the advisor. It means quick and real-time trading, but of course, it does, as you rightly say, come with responsibilities. But very much in the main, people really do like the speed and efficiency that INN8 gives them. Okay, so tell me, Mike, what is Elevate? What does that? Why have we called it Elevate? What exactly is it? What's happening?
Yeah. So importantly, it's not a migration in the typical sense of the word. When you use the word migration, it tends to send alarm bells everywhere. People worry about, features and benefits changing for clients, a whole lot of terms and conditions, changes of legal entities. So none of that's happening with this process. We have architected Innate so that we can make this the barest amount of change possible for clients. So, for example, it's the same legal entity that supports innate Standard Wealth Management as the LISP entity. And so, you go from one account within Standard Wealth Management into another account at Standard Wealth Management. So there's no change in legal entity. And from a product T's and C's perspective, the fees are exactly the same between Standard LISP and Innate. Other than at Innate, you get a few more opportunities to aggregate client assets. And so, what we've always said is the fees for clients must be the same or potentially better in the future. And so that's why we've called it Elevate, George, because we didn't want to spark alarm. There's no need to worry about anything changing negatively for clients. It's only positive change. And actually, what this is all about is a data migration from the databases at Standard Lisp into the databases at Innate. And then that information and all the client records, as well as the units that belong to those client accounts, showing up in the new world after the go live weekend. So Elevate is really the structured process, and we can get into some of the governance later because, as you can imagine, internal audits are all over us, risk, etc., compliance, and and there's an inordinate amount of work that goes in to prepare for the process, and then again, like on the go live weekend, that's when we actually do all the moving. But by the time that comes around, there's been a whole lot of practicing in test environments to make sure we get it right. And it's not the first time we're doing it. So there were two tranches that happened previous to this. One last year in May, which was very modest, roughly about 4 billion rands worth of client assets, 127 advisors who went through that. They were very patient and they worked with us. It was fantastic. But we landed that tranche on an external reconciliation basis for those who like numbers to within one rand and 17 cents. It was a fantastic effort. And then in September, we many of the advisors on the call today went through tranche two. That was an increase in assets and clients. There were almost 18,000 clients in that tranche two, roughly 24 billion rands worth of assets, and just short of 900 advisors who went through tranche two, and that landed again within sort of 5 rand and 26 cents on 24 billion, which was like a really great outcome in terms of technical precision for the technical team.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a couple of really interesting points I want to pick up on. So you say that it's the same licenses. So we've got exactly the same wrappers as you had on Standard Bliss. We've got them available on Innate under the same licenses, which I think is really important. Of course, we've got the addition of the endowment now as well, endowment and the sinking fund, which is more functionality that we didn't have on the old Standard Bliss. And we see that's a really popular wrapper that advisors are enjoying using. And then you mentioned about the fact that we've done a couple of tranches already, and you're right. I mean, to get within 5 rand, and I think the only reason we were 5 rand out was because one system goes to 4 decimal places and one goes to five. So so that's the only reason. So we even knew the reason that we were out. But I'm sure you learned lots of lessons from the two tranches that have gone before last year. Perhaps you can, and of course there'll be lots of advisors listening to us today who probably were part of those previous tranches. Maybe you can talk us through some of the lessons that have been learned and some of the things that we've put in place to as a response to those lessons that have been learned, Mike.
Yeah, some very valuable lessons. And certainly, while we're very proud of the sort of technical precision of the migration, there were some advisors who weren't happy with some of the process that went on. And I'll give you some examples of that now. So the one sort of issue which we thought was the biggest for clients in particular was what I call the expectation gap. And so we published client lists up until the beginning of tranche two, advisors sort of thought that all of those clients would be moving through during the tranche. We have this very detailed system called rules of entry, and and it's very strict. And if a client's record doesn't pass all of those rules of entry, and it's everything from the data quality to their FICA compliance, there could be any number of things that a client's record might fail validation on the go live weekend. Um, and so what we saw was, anywhere between 20 and 60% of an advisor's book might have been held back as part of that tranche. And so that expectation gap is what we've worked really hard with to try and prepare for tranche three. So we don't have sort of as much of a drop off rate in terms of the client lists that we publish. And what we've been able to do is right now the team are busy with a dry run. We're going to publish those client lists at the end of the dry run, and then we'll push that same client cohort through two additional dress rehearsals where the team literally sit minute by minute and they go through in a test environment. And only the clients who make it through those dress rehearsals will show up on your client lists. And we did try to do that before. We probably could have got in one more dress rehearsal prior to tranche two. But that's certainly one sort of big area. There was no downside for clients other than the fact that they stayed behind at standard Lisp. But again, that's sort of an expectation management gap, which we identified as tranche two, and we've changed and amended some of our testing. We've added test cycles, and so that client list that you're going to receive from us in the CPD portal leading up to tranche three will be as accurate as possible. Bearing in mind this is live data that we're dealing with, so if client does a top up last minute, or they get married and they change their surname, there could be these data anomalies that crop up, but we're really looking for a much higher sort of throughput and success rate through the rules of entry.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and that was really the main feedback we got was not that there was any problem with the last tranche that we did, but you created an expectation that my client was moving, then they didn't, and now they're asking questions as to why they didn't move because of course they were communicated to that they were moving. So I think really valuable lessons learned, and we put in place processes and additional checks and balances that ensure that that's not going to happen again this time. You mentioned there, Mike, how we share client lists, and you mentioned about the CPD portal. Perhaps you could just expand a little bit on the CPD portal. What is it? How does an advisor access it, and why is it so important?
Yeah, thanks, George. The CPD portal started out as something to help advisors keep track of their CPD points that they sort of earn via attending various webinars and conferences with INN8. And it's a secure portal. We can also publish content to that, and we're able to publish your client lists. Everyone in your book who is in scope for tranche three will show up in a protected file on that CPD portal, so you can log in securely and you get access to those client lists. There are also additional data points relating to each of those client records, which firstly you can help us, perhaps clean the data if there's perhaps an ID number or an incomplete email address. There's a process for you to let us know, and we can clean that in advance of tranche three, as well as certain data points around success. Once we move through the Elevate process, you'll be able to see which of those clients' records have been transferred successfully. And so the idea is to really surface up this information for advisors to access securely, because obviously there's client records there, so it must be POPI compliant, which we're satisfied that it is. But it's a very important touch point for advisor to be able to log into the CPD portal. And
Yeah,
importantly, the email address that you log in there must match the one that you use at Standard Lisp. Otherwise,
yeah.
we can't grant you access.
And you access the CPD portal via the INN8 website. So just via the normal website, you'll see it there. And it is incredibly important. It saves, I mean, the old way of doing that would have been to send emails with password protected spreadsheets, which would have been just hideous. So, using a CPD portal that you can log into and access your client data, I think is a fantastic ability. And please, I encourage all advisors to use it. If you're struggling to find it or get on board, please do contact your salesperson, or hello@innate.co.za, and we will jump on to help you. It's such an important tool to use, the CPD portal. So please do go online and access your client list. And of course, those client lists will be changing as you go through these more and more dress rehearsals. I'm right there, aren't I, Mike?
That's correct. We'll refresh those client lists twice before tranche three happens.
And of course, all of that will be communicated to advisors as well as we work our way towards this larger tranche, which is tranche three, coming in May. And in fact, I've touched on the movement of the date there. Perhaps you could just talk about when the tranche is happening, and why it's happening in May.
Correct. So last year, we had forecast that the tranche would take place in March of this year, and following sort of a number of events post tranche two, and I'll talk you through some of those now. We took a decision in January to move that date from March to May. What that does is a few things. So we noticed that of the 18,000 clients who we transferred in September, several hundred required additional support from our call center to log into their accounts, even though advisors didn't need them to log into their accounts, except for bank accounts, and we'll get there just now, George. But clients want to touch their money, so it's important that they can log in. And we were sort of inundated with several hundred phone calls from clients post tranche two over the course of October, November, and that detracted from the service levels in some of the teams serving the advisor community. And so our teams are geared up to serve advisors, not to take client calls. And so one of the things which we've done to alleviate that is we've spun up we call it an end client service center. So that will be up and running during the course of March, and those guys and girls are really specialists to help your clients log in, reset their password, get their secure link, send them a statement if they need to. It's really just to alleviate some of that volume which went through to the advisor service center on INN8. And we've done our calculations, and we reckon we've got a good number of people staffed there. It's the same kind of service if your end clients have phoned in to Stanley Unit Trust, as an example. It's the same provider who's helping us there. And so that was so one thing, just to alleviate the volumes. And then in addition to that, we're expecting a whole lot of advisors to be transacting going forward. So increase in transactions, increase in queries. And while we have been steadily moving our Stanlib service staff across to INN8, training them, making sure that they are up and running, we've also had late last year approved a whole lot of new budget and additional headcount, which will effectively double our existing capacity within the INN8 service area, as well as in the operations areas. So, in advance of tranche 3A, we'll be sort of testing the tires there, making sure that we've got enough people on the phones and emails to make sure we continue to meet service levels through, even though we have a spike in volume over the tranche 3A in May. And so that was really the fundamental reason why we chose to move from March to May, was to make sure we capacitate and test all these processes. But in addition to that, there were a few items which advisors had been talking to us to say, please, can you fix this? Oh, we were looking forward to see that. And we brought forward many of those items, from small incremental fixes to some sort of more far-reaching improvements. And we'll talk about client onboarding just now, George. But really we wanted to deliver those in February, March, and April, so that advisors can see the difference coming through in the proposition and the web that they use. So yeah, that's
I think it feels like there's a lot more support and action in the service area. I am keeping an eye on the questions that are coming through, and Tony's asked, Tony Rossano, nice to have you around with us today, this morning. Thank you, Tony. But he's asked a very relevant question to this new support hub, which is for investors to phone. And he's asked if there will be a specific number for clients if they need to call INN8 to assist with logins. Perhaps you can talk us through how that's going to work, this new extra support that you've mentioned just now.
Yep. So there's, I don't like multiple telephone numbers. I think people end up going, well, which one do I phone? And, you end up with advisors phoning the call. So it'll be IVR, are you a client? Are you an advisor? And clients press one, advisors press two. So very simple, same number. You don't need to change anything in terms of your process. And clients can call us and then we'll just route them. Uh, these end investor service agents are supervised by our team leaders within our service center. So we've expanded the capacity there, and they all have access to our same software, the same queues, etc. So that's it's meant to be an integrated service. It's just sitting as a separate team within the innate service area.
And I think it's also really important to just mention we are an intermediated platform. So this support center for investors is very much for sort of login and passwords type questions. If we won't ever withdraw on client instructions, it has to go through an advisor. And if those kind of queries come through, they will be directed back to the advisor. So I just want to reassure advisors
Correct.
listening this morning, it's not about disintermediating the advisor. It's very much about just supporting and getting the call volumes to the right places. Would you agree, Mike?
Absolutely. Basic information about the products, and any transactional queries will redirect back to the advisor service center and the advisor in their back office.
Absolutely. So, Mike, do I, as an advisor, need to sign new terms of business before Elevate? What do I need to do as an advisor to make sure I'm on the bus?
That's a great question. So, George, I think if you're on the call, you've probably already engaged with somebody from our
Yeah.
group, and most advisors have signed updated terms and conditions. And that really just speaks to the slight nuances and responsibilities that the advisor takes when using Innate. We're very cognizant that there may be a big cohort of advisors who haven't gone through that process. And as part of this, once you log in to your new advisor profile on Innate, if you haven't signed terms of business with us, then you go through a process to accept those updated T's and C's. There's nothing controversial in there. It's just an important legal step if you haven't done it already. So I'm sure many of those on the call have done that already.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what's important is it's not just about signing terms of business, or whether it's done in a bulk way or an individual way. What's really important is you get used to the system, you get used to how it works. What we've always tried to do from right the year dot is we don't want advisors to experience a situation where they go to bed on Friday with Stanley Lisp and they wake up on Monday with Innate and they don't necessarily understand or know how the system works. That's not a great experience for the advisor, certainly not a great experience for clients, and it creates quite a lot of volume into us, which of course is already quite a busy time. Not just get on board and get registered, but please do get used to the system. Put a couple of deals through. Put your own deal through as an advisor, just so that you are aware of how the system works. There's plenty of people who can help you with that. So please do get on the bus sooner rather than later. Anything you want to add to that, Mike?
Yeah, I think you touched on the client login as well, George, and while it's not a requirement for clients to sign any updated T's and C's, um, that they will receive a secure link to log into their accounts to view their investments. As soon as we go live with the elevated tranche and notify advisors that that has happened, they will be able to transact on those client accounts. What we found with tranche two was, as far as bank accounts were concerned, we had brought across bank account detail for any client with an existing debit order, an active debit order, or an existing regular withdrawal, be it living annuity or other. And but many accounts where clients may have had bank account details at Stanlib, but they weren't active, so to speak, those were not transferred across. And so there was quite a bit of pain with advisor wanting to do withdrawal. Client had to log in and approve those bank account details because that is one of the important controls on INN8 to make sure that when client comes to do a withdrawal, that their bank account details are approved and sort of on the system. Um, yes, advisor loads those details, but an important step is for clients to log in and approve those. Now, what we've changed for tranche three is, as far as possible, we will be moving many of those, I call them inactive client detail, bank account details from Stanlib to INN8. We'll push them through a validation engine, and obviously any bank accounts that don't get validated won't be loaded. But for example, if you did a withdrawal into a client bank account 3 months ago, we will be moving those across to INN8. So you won't have the same level of volume of clients needing to approve bank account details post T3A.
That's important, and I think it's worth just stopping here to. And I see a lot of questions are coming in about the differences between Stanlib and Innate, and we can certainly touch on some of those in just a moment. But I do think it's important to understand, and we spoke up front about a digital straight through system. And one of the problems with legacy systems, particularly with our old standard list, was actually managing the money once it was on the platform was quite tedious and quite onerous for both the advisor and the client. In fact, doing a withdrawal on standard Lisp was quite a rigmarole and involved clients having to receive phone calls and confirm bank account details, which is never very nice if they're not expecting the phone call. The fact that you can actually have a straight through system, digital system with a bank account pre-approved means actually one of the very best things I think about Innate is something like something around the withdrawal process, being able to put through a withdrawal, see that go straight through, and sometimes it's actually in the client's account within the same day. Other times it has to take a couple of days just while we disinvest some funds. But really, that very straight through process means that a client can be overseas and instruct you to make a withdrawal, and it becomes a very easy exchange, which I think is so important because when a client wants their money, that's when the relationship between the client and the advisor is perhaps at its most fragile. So if we can make that a great experience for both the client and the advisor, which I think we have on Innate, I think it's a win for everyone.
Mm.
So I just want to just kind of highlight how important it is that clients do validate their bank accounts because it does make that process so much easier. Anything to
So
add
one use
there?
case, George,
Yeah.
I don't want to turn this into a sales session,
I'm always
but
happy to turn it into a sales
one
session.
process that advisors say is often quite useful, but not many advisors know they can do this, is you can switch from underlying assets, so out of unit trusts, into the cash PCA in advance of a large withdrawal. So let's say a client's purchasing a house or whatever, and they need $1 million, that you can sell those assets and have them in cash PCA earning interest. And then on the day that they need the money, you can literally process that withdrawal for the cash
Amazing.
to be paid out. And that's just sort of it makes that availability so much sort of almost close to real time.
Absolutely, Mike. And you've mentioned really great feature of the Innate platform, which is the PCA, the product cash account. You mentioned it there. It's not something that exists on the standard Lisp. Can you just explain a little bit more about what it is and tell me what's going to happen to clients who are moving in Elevate? What happens to their money and the PCA side of things? Perhaps you could just talk me through that.
Yeah, so there's a few different moving parts. The cash PCA was something which I guess comes standard with the platform. At the moment, new clients, 2% of each contribution goes into the cash PCA, and we use that cash PCA to pay ongoing advice fees, ongoing platform fees, and any other, even a small withdrawal, you can make it out of the cash PCA. Um, there are certain choices that Cash PCA brings with it. So you can choose to redirect income distributions to stay in Cash PCA, for example, and you can manage living annuity drawdowns really well. So there's lots of optionality that the Cash PCA brings you. Um, but we do recognize that it is something different from standard Lisp. And so from what happened in tranche two is we set everybody's all the clients who came across in tranche two to a 0% cash PCA. So it was um, exactly the same as what they would have had at Standard Lisp. The fees are still sort of redeemed by selling assets in the market and paid as per normal. That cash PCA sits at zero, and it's a bit like a suspense account. So all the transactions go in and out the cash PCA. We will be
Yeah.
doing, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go no, go ahead, Mike.
So we will be doing the same for tranche 3A. The only difference post 3A is we're introducing functionality for advisors to be able to manage the percentage of the cash PCA at a client account level. And when that arrives sort of later in the year, it will be either at new business, you can set it up, or you can toggle that on an existing client account. You know, perhaps you've got a really large client and they only want a smaller cash PCA. It does having some cash PCA really alleviates sort of the need to constantly sell assets, and so you can never avoid CGT, but you can certainly postpone some of it down the line.
And actually, one of the great things about Innate is you can direct distributions into the PCA, which of course then alleviates your CGT ability later on. So I think that's also there's a really nice functionality around the PCA and actually being quite clever about managing your client's capital gains tax liabilities. Okay, so. Will there be, and I think one of the questions that I think has come in on the Q&A, but I'm gonna ask it now as well. Will there be any change in Elevate about how I receive my advisor fees? And of course, we touched on the PCA. That's where the advisor fees come from. Perhaps you can just explain to us what's going to happen from an advisor fees perspective.
Yes. So something, and again, we're going back to lessons learned. Uh, some advisors were a bit unhappy post tranche two. It felt to them like we short paid them in their ongoing advice fees. Uh, Actually, what happened is we processed accruals at Standard Lisp, we processed accruals at INN8 to make sure we paid for every single day that a client was on a platform for the month of September. However, because of the difference in timing between Standard Lisp at the moment works roughly on an eighth to an eighth month, and they pay advisors around about the ninth or the 10th. Whereas at INN8, we work on a calendar month. So from the first to the end of the month, and we pay the first Thursday after that month end. And so because of that timing difference, some advisors felt like they were short paid roughly 7 or 8 days worth of ongoing advice fees for the month following tranche two. Now, we recognized there was a complete unintended consequence. We thought we had accrued for everything, and we did. But actually, what advisors feel is in their pocket. And so, to alleviate that for tranche three, we're going to make sure that there's no difference in cash flow as your clients move over from Stanlib to INN8. What we're going to do is we're actually going to be aligning the INN8 payment months to the Stanlib ones, and we'll process a small accrual actually at the beginning of June to almost like catch up those clients onto the what is effectively the Standard Lisp cadence of advisor ongoing fees. And so what advisors will feel is they will feel that their cash flow is the same had their clients been on Standard Lisp the whole time. And so that's really, I think, the important thing for us. We don't want any advisors to even feel like they are out of pocket. So our teams they're testing that solution, and it's looking good to go live in tranche 3A.
And that's great because that did cause quite a lot of noise. I think it's really important that advisors understand that actually I think the way in which we accrue advisor fees on INN8 is actually so much better than it was on Standard Lisp. We accrue on a daily rate rather than Standard Lisp was at a snapshot in time once a month. Which can either hugely disadvantage the client or the advisor. I think doing it as a daily accrual is a much fairer and much more transparent way of doing it. So again, I think a really nice step forward there. I had a couple of questions come in, Mike. I think it's worth just touching here. Actually, no, before I go to the question, and the question is around base cost and CGTs, but before I go there, can you just explain? whether there's going to be any movement of funds or whether clients will come across and they'll be invested like for like. And then could you also touch on base cost and CGT and how advisors can see their base cost from when the investment has come across to the standard list. Duncan, this is for you. I see there's a couple of questions that come in from you on that.
Okay, so first and foremost, the Elevate transfer is not a CGT event. So there's no realized or unrealized gain that should be arising from this. It's effectively a transfer of units from one bulk account at Stanley Wealth Management to another bulk account at Stanley Wealth Management. And all the fund managers are doing, so as part of the process, we're sending sort of bulk instructions out to the market. And let's say, Coro or Stanley Asset Management or 91, they will move those units in bulk from this account in Stanley's name to the new account that supports INN8. And so that's really the only transaction that happens. There's no realized gain or any CGT payable on this transfer, and we will move those same base costs across from Stanlib into the INN8 platform. And so wherever you see tax values, those will start to populate using the historical base costs that clients had on Stanlib List.
And if I wanted to see historical data of my client, how do I do that? Or do you want to save that question for later for the exciting new developments that are coming? It's up to you, Mike.
George, you're putting me on the spot here. So
Uh,
I think it's certainly not. It's not best practice to bring across, decades in some clients' instances, decades worth of minute transactional history, all the fees and with etc. So what we've done is instead of moving across bulk loads of transactional history, firstly, StanLib Online will still be available to access your client tax certificates, their statements, even though their account is now a zero balance post Elevate, and that you will still have access to all of those documents for the remainder of 2026 and for the first month or two of 2027. So please don't think like you're not going to lose access to what clients had before. So that's sort of number one. Number two, the Stanlib account number is going to be searchable on the INN8 platform. So if you know they're an elevated client, but you can't remember their INN8 number, you can just search them on their old account number, and that will come up as well. And it will be referenced in certain of the documents. So you'll be able to see on a statement, oh, this is an elevated client because there's the old account number. But really, what we sort of knew that was most important for clients is their investment performance track record. Often that's the central point of many advisor annual reviews, and clients obviously place a lot of emphasis on that. And so what we've done is we will be bringing across um, a series of data points and cash flows for each client account, which we store in a big database on the INN8 side, and we will start to join up any future transactions on that INN8 account with the existing Standard Lisp history. And at the moment, those reports for tranche two clients you can get on an ad hoc request basis from our contact center, and it's sort of a one pager with a market line graph and internal rates of return table at the bottom, and that includes any performance that they had at Lisp as well as any performance they start to build at INN8 in a joined up fashion. So you don't doesn't matter which platform they were on, you can see that performance track record. And sort of second half of the year, we will make those available online on the platform. So you won't have to email us to get a copy. You can just go and fetch it, or your assistant can fetch it for themselves. It's important that we land that data, which is only really accessible post Elevate. We have to land it in these databases, make sure it's all tested properly, and then surface that up into reports. So there is a sort of a process of a few weeks after Elevate to be able to get access to those I call them investment performance reports. But the important part is that we can join up those histories for client. So it's a bit like your old bank statements. You don't really you don't keep your old bank statements from 10 years ago. So we're not bringing quarterly statements from 2005 at Stanlib to N8. But the essence of that, if you were thinking about banking, your net value, your net asset value as a client, and how you've built that up over time, you're going to bring those bits of information across, which is really all the cash flows and the market value data at certain points in time.
Thanks so much, Mike. I see a few people have asked what the password is for the CPD portal. Great to see lots of people are actually trying to access the CPD portal that we mentioned earlier. Guys, the password is your ID number. So, RD, I can see you worked that out yourself. Well done. But I can see other people are asking the same question. So, just so you know, CPD portal, your password is your ID number. Also, a few questions in there about what do the different statuses mean. I think we need to do a communication about what do the statuses mean on the CPD portal. So we'll get that sorted as well. But thanks so much for the questions that have come in around the CPD portal. Really, really, really like that. And also another question about whether we're going to provide notifications about clients who have dropped off or been added to the CPD portal. There will definitely be email notifications that come out after each dry run dress rehearsal that show you which clients will have been removed or moved into the Elevate process happening in May. Mike, one of the things that's often asked, and I
So
think
can I
it's
just
really
clarify there,
yes.
George? So once the March client lists are uploaded, no new clients will be added to that list, but
Yeah,
clients
that's a
can
good
drop
point.
off. So that's an important concept as well. So we're
Yeah.
not going to add a client last minute to Elevate Tranche 3A. If they didn't qualify, I think by the end of March, then they're not in, and they will be picked up by Tranche 3B, which is later in 2026. But importantly, they could drop off from that tranche, um, uh, given any number of different reasons, and they're not serious reasons. It's very technical. It's something to be concerned about if a client does drop off, but it is possible. But we're not going to be adding in clients into that client list.
Absolutely. And Lorraine has asked if it's too late to register for Innate and then get into the May tranche. I think it most likely is, but there is a tranche, a final tranche later this year, Lorraine. So we'll get someone to get in touch and help you register. I think it's unlikely you'll be included in the May tranche now. Um,
I think we have till the 5th or 6th of March, George. So
okay.
if
Okay.
Lorraine's
So
very, very keen to be
yeah,
in, that's fantastic, and
yeah,
I'm
it
sure we can
is.
arrange that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Thanks very much. Can you talk to me a little bit more about communication? How are we going to communicate with advisors? How are we going to communicate with clients?
Yeah. And again, I've apologized every single tranche. You're going to be so sick of hearing from us, and that's actually a good thing because when it comes to changes of this magnitude, you cannot over communicate. And I know you're probably routing all of my mails to spam at the moment. Um, please, so there's a few things. The principle is that we're never going to send anything to your client until we've sent something to you about it. So you should always be in the loop as an advisor, and we have what we call a communication cadence. And what that means is we send out internally, so to all of our salespeople, our internal staff, our executives, we send them an example of a communication that's about to go out to advisors and clients. Then the next day, we send to advisor community exactly the same sort of content structured for you to read. And we usually provide an example if there's a client communication to follow, an example of that client communication. You don't need to do anything with it. All you have to do is read it and sort of become accustomed to it. And then a day or two later, we send the actual client correspondence. And we've noticed that you typically have to send three of these in advance of each tranche, and only the last one is technically I guess the regulatory notification that we're making some changes to your account, and that is 30 days ahead of the tranche in May. The previous two notifications are really just orienting you and the client around the new platform. And the first one, which I think went out late last year, was really just talking to some change coming and introducing the concept of Elevate. And so it's important that you understand we're not going to send anything to clients until we've sent it to you. And there's three big comms around the Elevate tranche. To support all of this, we also have detailed FAQ documents, which I know most of you are going to upload it to ChatGPT and ask it questions. But we're also taking, based on the feedback from the advisor community, which are the most important questions. And so maybe we'll push you a WhatsApp tile from your relationship manager or distribution person. Maybe you'll get a personalized email referring you to one or two important things. And so again, we cannot over communicate here. It does become a little bit much as we get to the tranche, but so that's for the generic comms. There's some client account specific communications, which we're also going to be pushing out in the form of SMSs or WhatsApp tiles. And those are around freeze dates, which are very specific, as well as bringing forward certain regular withdrawal and living annuity payment dates, as we've done with the previous two tranches. So in May, we'll pay early in May on Stanlib for clients who are making their way through Elevate so that they're not, out of pocket during that important changeover period. And so we'll send you reminders about these as well as it comes to that important time.
Absolutely. And thanks for clarifying. I can see a lot of questions coming in. It's great to see some good friends coming through. Harry, Miles, Grant, great to see you online today. CPD portal is just for Elevate. It is just for your client lists, and you access that through the website. Unfortunately, you don't access that through the platform. You access that through just the INN8 website. You'll see CPD portal. Even if you type into Google INN8 CPD portal, you'll get the link coming straight up. So unfortunately, Miles, we don't put the CPD portal onto the actual platform itself. It is a separate login via the INN8 website. And Harry, from a client historical data that Mike was just speaking about, that's not on the CPD portal. CPD portal is very much just for your clients that are going to go through the next tranche of Elevate. And it's for looking at those and making sure you know which clients are in and out. Mike, question that just came in, sorry, I've lost who asked it, but using the CPD portal and downloading information about clients from there, and perhaps some of the data needs to be updated. Do advisors just update it on the CPD portal, or do they have to go in through the usual static data update process via Stanlib list? What's the way in which they do that, please?
Mm. So I think we've tried to make this as easy as possible. So you can complete your client data in those Excel sheets and then just email them back to us and we will update them at the stand-up system. So usually it's an ID number that's missing a digit or an email address that doesn't have an @ sign. So some of those updates, please feel free to send them through to Stanlib or INN8 and we'll get them captured.
Absolutely. We're just trying to make it as easy as possible for advisors. We don't need you to fill in that 8-page Stanlib list static data update form. Not necessary. Just send us an email with the updated information and we'll get it sorted.
George,
Uh,
something which struck my eye, if you don't mind me jumping in, is
yes,
just on the pricing. So I think
yes.
pricing is very important for clients, and obviously everyone knows that the Stanlib TIFSA is a flat 20 basis points plus VAT admin fee. So the first principle is that we're going to be moving clients across to INN8 at exactly the same fees that they had before. So we're not moving any of those TIFSA clients to the prevailing INN8 tiered platform fee. So they'll continue to enjoy those fees into perpetuity if that's what you choose for them. Obviously, if clients grow their wealth, they can enjoy a lower effective fee rate. And you can always in future choose to move those tax-free savings accounts to the prevailing INN8 platform fee. Remember, you can also aggregate client assets, whether it be with offshore assets or family aggregation. And so some of those benefits become quite real quite quickly. Um,
Absolutely, and the family aggregation is something that's really a really great feature, which I think is a proposition feature that's leading the market right now. So certainly ways in which you can save your clients money from a platform fee perspective. But of course, I know what you're going to say, Mike. You're going to say once you choose the new fee on INN8, you can't go back to the old fee. Am I right?
yeah, unfortunately, there's no going back, George. It's only forwards. But you have that option. A client lands at the same fee that they were at Stanlib, and then at any point you can choose to move them across the prevailing. There are many clients who are on fixed fees at Stanlib, and there's quite a lot of legacy arrangements. We've closed most of those down, and they don't really apply anymore. But certainly, we will be moving those clients who are on fixed fees across at the same fixed fee they were on. And it comes with some terms and conditions in the same way that I described on the tax-free savings account. They will stay on those fixed fees, but those assets in those accounts won't count towards the aggregation, but they can always choose to sign up to the prevailing platform fee and then enjoy the aggregation. So again, it's a one-way door, but we are giving you the choice to choose for each client whatever's best for them.
Thanks, Mike. I'm conscious of time and loving all the questions that are coming through. If we don't get them to them now, we will make sure that someone gets back to you with an answer. Um, I want to just talk about the Liberty Living annuity, or what was fondly called Liberty Bold before. And I also want to talk through the actual process because I'm sure there's going to be freeze periods and things that we need to understand. So what's happening with Liberty Living annuity, Mike?
The Liberty Living annuity, at least the accounts that don't have any guarantee attached to them, so we call them vanilla Liberty Living annuities. Those are in scope for tranche 3A, and those will be moved across effectively as a vanilla living annuity into the INN8 platform. Accounts with guarantees and the IEB benefit, those will follow in tranche 3B later this year.
Super. And tell me, what's going to be the actual process then for when we get close to May and the actual elevation process? What are the dates that advisors on this call need to be aware about? Obviously, we're going to communicate those to you in lots of different ways, but it's important, we can't over communicate this. Tell us the important dates, please, Mike.
Okay, so I mean, working backwards is the go live date is the weekend of 24, 25, 26 May. So by the 26th of May, all clients in scope for tranche 3A should be live on the system. Uh, Sort of a month before that is roughly when we will send out the 30 days notification, just letting clients know about the changes formally. And so that will be the middle of April. And in advance of that, as I mentioned, the dress rehearsals, we'll be doing a lot of testing over the course of those 2 months. Um, but just in terms of freeze periods, maybe it's something which advisors would have experienced in tranche two, but advisors who are new to this, we can just explain that quickly. So it's important that we have stability in the data and we don't have any transactions in progress at Standard Lisp. And so in the sort of the week leading up to when we do the actual data transfer in May, we're going to be soft closing those accounts and having a freeze on transactions on clients who are part of Elevate Tranche 3A. And so that means if you need to do a withdrawal or a switch, please get that in sort of before the first week of May for Tranche 3 clients. And then once they're obviously please don't go and create client profiles on INN8 for clients who are on Lisp today. It's not necessary. We're going to do all of that for you. You don't need to create anything in advance of Tranche 3, please. But we'll do that, and then you'll wake up on Monday morning, Monday evening, and we'll send you an email saying that your transfer was successful, and then you'll be able to go in and see all of your client data. And those client lists again will be updated with the various statuses of those client accounts. So those are really the important dates, George. And between now and then, what advisors can do is look out for our emails, as well as the frequently asked questions document. We'll take all of these questions here, we'll work through them and make sure we update the various sections of that FAQ document. Unfortunately, we're not going to there's so many questions, and I know it's a big change for clients, so it's important that we
Mm.
answer all of these. Um,
Yeah.
but again, like I think this is the third time that we'll be processing this, and also there's some really great things that we're doing to make this even smoother than tranche two, which we've factored into the timelines, and we're going to deliver for advisors and clients. So I think I have never been more optimistic about a tranche than this one. The team are so ready, and I don't want to throw any shade on our competition, but this is not an easy thing to do. and to have moved this level of assets in this space of time at the level of precision that we've done is certainly a first in the South African market in recent years, and we're going to do it again in tranche three.
Absolutely. Well said, Mike. Um, Two more questions that I'd like to just cover. What about if I have a personal share portfolio? Will that come across?
Okay, so personal share portfolios are out of scope for tranche 3A. You'll continue to be able to trade on them at Standard as you do today. That functionality is being delivered in parallel, actually over the same timeline as the May tranche, but will only be available second half of the year as we move those PSP balances in September, and then phase two of PSPs, which is sort of a more broader, very interesting and exciting offering, will land towards the end of 2026. So that's a very exciting development. But again, we didn't want to sort of confuse tranche 3A with PSPs, which is very technical, and it'll be a focus area for tranche 3B to make sure we get that absolutely right. But again, that's in September.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Mike. And we've you've also been very busy building new features, and we've definitely been also, as you mentioned earlier, improving ops and service to help further improve the Innate platform. Can you talk us through some of these exciting new developments? Peter, I can see you've asked twice about TFSA transfers in. I am not ignoring you, but Mike will cover some of the key things now that have been asked for by advisors. A lot of those have been accelerated in their delivery to make sure that the platform is as good as it possibly can be for our advisors coming across in T3A. Perhaps you could just talk us through some of those features, please, Mike.
Thanks, George. With 3 minutes to go, I'll
Yes,
do that.
go.
Sum up a year of delivery. Okay, I guess the number one is book reports. So there's an updated, much easier to use book report landing very soon in the next week or two, which is a format that advisors are comfortable with at Stanlib. It's got some additional sort of pivoting and filtering options, which is quite user friendly. So that's going live along with sort of several other like data enhancements, which the team have been working on for a while. We know that reporting is something which advisors put a lot of value in. So there's lots of improvements coming this year around book reporting and the dashboard with assets on the web page, etc. So those are exciting things to look forward to. Quite a few sort of smallish amendments, but important. So risk profiles, for example, are going to be going onto the quotes very soon, this or next month. The ability to add fund fact sheets and sort of attach them to your quote. That's also coming through in the next a month or so. And then quite a few fixes to, particularly on the administration fees in certain instances they weren't showing properly in the EAC. So that's all been fixed and currently going through testing and will go live in the next few weeks. And I think what was the other item on living annuities. So at the moment, we just show gross income. I know that advisors want to see at least the illustrative tax value using the PAYE tables and also the net that clients would receive. We've also fixed the bug on the investment proposal, which around the initial fee and the illustrative drawdown. So that will all be coming through latest in April. And yeah, so I mean, those are sort of like the incremental enhancements. Some of the bigger changes, as far as client onboarding is concerned, is twofold. So, firstly, we want to make sure that the current process is much easier for clients to be able to onboard themselves. And so, we're going to be giving clients an ability to go to the website and almost register themselves and pull that secure link proactively. So, it's something that they're expecting and not something that just shows up in their spam folder and then they never know where to find it.
Thanks,
We'll
Mike.
also,
Patrick, that's the answer to your question.
yeah.
That Patrick Rosley asked exactly that question. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah.
And so that's laying some of the foundations to improve client onboarding. We're also spinning up a new correspondence item, which will notify you, the advisor, once that secure link has been sent out to client. So I know that's important that we keep advisors in the loop. And alongside with that will be we've picked, and it's a bit of a test, but we've picked a few of the important correspondence items. So, for example, living annuity renewal reminders, and we're going to be CCing advisor on just 2 or 3 of those sort of client documents, which at the moment you weren't seeing in your inbox. You could see them on the client portal, but that required you to log in. So many of you live in your inboxes, so we're going to be CCing you on just 1 or 2 of those important correspondence items.
Absolutely. Mike, thank you very much. Last question. Who do people contact? Who do advisors contact if they have further questions? Where do they go to get those questions answered? And what are we going to do about all these questions in our chat Q&A?
Okay, so first point of call is always your relationship person, whoever you deal with from INN8 or Stanlib. Um, uh, I think that's the sort of having a conversation with them. They can orient you, particularly around some of these questions. We've spent a lot of time training both internal staff in the call center and our distribution folks, keeping them up to speed with things. So, WhatsApping them or emailing them is your first point of call. Around transactional items, absolutely correspond with hello at INN8. The standard list is we're running it as one service center area. So all your queries are going to the same team of people. It's very much an integrated team at the moment. And so we'll pick up your questions there. We'll also take many of these questions and add them to our frequently asked questions document, which is updated on a monthly basis with new questions. So that's also a good reference point. And something I didn't mention earlier, George, sorry, the tax-free savings account transfer in is certainly on the roadmap. It will likely come later on in the year, perhaps in July. So obviously your tax-free savings accounts from Stanlib are in scope for transfer for tranche 3A and B. But in terms of external transfers, obviously we want you to bring all of your tax-frees from 91 and the like, bring those, and you'll be able to bring those in later on this year.
Super. Mike, thank you very much for that overview. Great to have such interaction with our advisors online today. Thank you very, very much for all your interaction. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we will. Mike, it just leaves me to say thank you very much. We're here with you, supporting you. Our team in distribution is absolutely ready for T3. And we are looking forward to the success that comes in May. So thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you, George, and thank you to everyone on the call.
INN8 is a registered trademark of Stanlib Wealth Management Pty Limited, an authorised financial services provider.